Welcome to the HR Huddle podcast, presented by Sapient Insights Group, the ultimate resource for all things HR. It's time to get in the huddle.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the HR Huddle. I'm your host, Cliff Stevenson, Director of Research at Sapient Insights Group. And if you're wondering, wait a second, that's not Terry's voice. That's because Terry is over at the Pivot Effect. I couldn't think of a very good, ridiculous reason why she wasn't joining us today, but I really wanted to push the Pivot Effect, her other show, today because the last episode they interviewed my good friend and work colleague Summer Oriano, and it's a really wonderful episode, so go check that out. But for today, we have another exciting episode of HR We Have a Problem. It is the show where we break down the big and most relevant HR issues of the day, help you make sense of what they mean for you, and we're going to talk to you about what you can do about them. And today's a very special episode. So I've got today with me Todd Bertsch, who's a guest speaker and mental fitness coach. And so often on this show and on one of our sister shows, Spilling the Tea on HR Tech, we talk a lot about sort of problems and issues that arise, the big stories that happen. And very often what gets left behind is, what do we do about these things? What can we personally do besides knowing about them, right? So when I met with Todd, I was like, this is perfect because this is very much what you are doing. If you're seeing the video version of this, you'll actually see one of Todd's books over his right shoulder. So Todd, really, really great to have you and welcome.
Hey, Cliff, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah. So I'll mention you probably have not seen the results because I got a little nervous about sending them in. But at least as far as the sort of focus, at least on that book, Ignite Your Spark, there's a spark assessment that takes place. And maybe you could talk a little bit about what goes into it. I'll just mention that from my personal experience, just taking it was enough to get me thinking more before I'd even seen the results, right? Just taking it, started thinking about, how do I get work done a little bit before this episode. In the green room, I was mentioning, I started thinking about, I do different types of work, right? I approach different sort of challenges differently. And it already got me thinking about, here's something I could do to sort of overcome that just by focusing on that. So when things come up, I remember one of the questions, when challenges arise, do you set aside the work that you're doing or, focus on the new one? And I was like, that's a good point. And I wonder why I'm doing that. Right. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how the methodology and how you came into that, what you're hoping to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it does start with the problem. So let's start there. Let's start with the big D, disengagement, right? We see the Gallup polls, 80% or more, 87, depending on who's talking about it or where you read it. The number is outrageous, right? Too many people are disengaged and too many people are burnt out, right? So we see the Gallup polls and we see the research from SHRM. It's there. On top of that, you have AI and you have the biggest global disruption we've ever seen, or one of the worst we've ever seen. So we have a lot of things kind of working against us. And we have these data points that haven't changed for decades, which is ridiculous. So that's the problem. So I'm part of that problem, right? We're all workers, right? Or some of us are leaders too. Some of us are HR practitioners. I own a marketing business. I was the HR person for 15 years. So not only did I see the disengagement, but I experienced it myself. And what I believe, Cliff, is that disengagement, burnout, resistance to change aren't the problem. They're symptoms. The real problem is that somewhere along the way, people have allowed their spark to dim. My mission is to help leaders, help teams ignite, protect, and multiply the spark that's within every single person they serve. Because to me, yes, disengagement's used, those are problems, and those dim sparks are leading to tremendous loss, right? We're seeing trillions of dollars in loss because of disengagement, thousands of dollars in turnover, retention issues. But the biggest loss is the human potential that's never realized because we've slipped into a comfort zone, or what I like to call Groundhog Day. So you remember the movie, Bill Murray?
Right.
Most of us have, right? Bill Murray reenacts the same day over and over again, and nothing changes until he changes. And that's how life feels sometimes for a lot of us. And it's not our fault. It doesn't mean that we're broken. It doesn't mean that we don't care. It's just that we get into this routine, right? The things that once excited us have been replaced by those routines, and we just slip into it. And it depends on season in life, season in career. We've all been there. I think we can all relate to that. And that's what I saw. And that's why I'm on this mission to help people, because I experienced that myself throughout my career. So I'm 55. I've been in business for a long time, like many of you, your listeners, and you, and I'm sure you can relate. Over time, you just get into a season where, depending on what's going on in life or in your career, you fall into that comfort zone. And when you're not growing, you're really not progressing, and you're not living up to that human potential, which is a detriment to your organization, to your well-being, your performance, and your family. Let's be honest, right? This is a trickle, a bleed into work and back into home, and vice versa. So what I wanted to do was, one, educate people on the problem, the symptoms, the smoke signals. Long before burnout and disengagement, there are smoke signals. And you're going to love this, Cliff, because it's data, right? Right? You're all about the data, the data points. But the thing is, leaders have to be open and curious enough to see the smoke. It's there. It's all around us. Just open your eyes, pause, take a moment, see the smoke. And it looks like this. And there are many others, but you can see the energy start to drop, maybe in yourself or others. You see curiosity start to shut down. You see ownership start to fade. Our relationships, our connections start to decline. And then we start getting protective instead of proactive. And then, we talked about it a little bit in the green room, you get the Sunday scaries.
Yeah.
Right? The weekend approaches and it comes to an end, and you're about to approach a new week, and you get that anxiety, that dread of going back to work. Well, guess what? Those smoke signals and the Sunday scaries are a sign that your spark is dimming. And when your spark is dimmed, that means that you are in a comfort zone. You are not growing. You are not living to your potential. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And it's something that I'm trying to solve with my upcoming book, Ignite Your Spark, with my Spark framework, and then, which you alluded to, my Spark assessment. So what I've come to realize, Cliff, is unfortunately, as human beings, it's not a motivational speech. It's not adding another perk. That's not how we solve this. It takes an interruption in our daily pattern in life. It takes an interruption. And there are two kinds of interruptions. One that life chooses for us, which we don't want, and that could be a loss, a family member. It could be tragedy. It could be a divorce. It could be loss of employment, right? These are big tragedy moments, right? Milestone moments that put us in a position to say, oh man, maybe I should take a look in the mirror. This is too close to home, right? We don't want that. We don't need that. There are other ways to interrupt. And one of those ways is through insight, which is exactly what you were alluding to, Cliff, with my SQ Spark assessment. And there are many great tools out there, right? There are many different assessment tools, strength finders. Love it. Great. Focuses on your strengths. You have DISC. You have, many other personality assessments. But I wanted to create a tool that provided those insights, because you don't know what you don't know, right? But once you see it, you can't change that. Now you need to take action. So to your point, we need to have the interruption to reflect. Take the time to pause. See, we're all moving so quickly, meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. And then we get home and we're baseball, soccer, dance recital, right? It just goes on. And we don't have any buffer. We don't have any blocking and tackling in our calendars. There's no time for us to put on the oxygen mask and just say, okay, I want to reflect for a moment. Am I really lit up? Am I really lit up? Am I enjoying what I'm doing? And maybe not. What am I putting off? What do I really enjoy that I haven't made time for? Because when you're not lit up, if you think about the people in your organization, or maybe it's even friends, colleagues that are the highest performers, are fully in a positive mindset, right? They're really happy. They're energized. All the things. You want to be in that room with that guy or gal, right? You're attracted to them because they're lit up. They're lit up. Their spark is lit. That's the difference. And you can see it. And when that spark is lit and protected, then it just multiplies out. That's when the magic happens. All it takes is one person in your team or in your organization, and that can spread like wildfire. It's like a yawn. It truly is contagious. And we've all experienced it being around that person. Like, oh, man, why is that person so doggone happy? Well, they enjoy what they're doing. They found something. They found some meaning, some purpose, or they just truly love the day-to-day. So anyhow, that was a long way around, Cliff, but to the Spark assessment tool. So I teamed up with a psychologist, a learning and development specialist, and an assessment tool creator, and we created the SQ Spark Assessment, which answers one simple question: how lit is your spark?
Yeah. And I will say it's comprehensive. I've taken, these assessments before, right? I should mention my background is psychology, right? So, even through school and stuff, you would do sort of assessments of assessments, right?
Right.
And it's always easy to kind of turn on that brain and say, oh, this is what this is going to lead to, And one of the things I really liked was just, there wasn't an obvious sort of right answer. Sometimes I say, I see where this is leading. So sometimes it's like, this seems like the more positive. This seems like this would be something that a person with a lit spark would do. And then some weren't so simple. So I really recommend anyone that's interested in this taking it. One thing that I thought about that as you were talking about these sort of external factors that can affect you, right? And you mentioned that it could be tragedy. I'm curious, do you also think it could happen because of more positive life events, right? You've just gotten a big promotion. You've just moved to a new location, something like that, because I think that could also be used as a time for reflection, right? A big life change sometimes that could be, fairly momentous, finally getting the position you're looking for, but maybe at a new company, right? Where it's a little more in flux, but that might be a moment to to turn that into a moment for internal reflection.
Absolutely. I love it. Absolutely. That is an interruption. And you're right, more of a positive interruption. And likely that is an opportunity for you to see it as something positive, as an opportunity to reframe, right? Maybe you are moving locations and there's a lot that is involved in that. Maybe it's the whole family and new schools, right? And there's a lot of stress and anxiety wrapped around it. But if you can reframe, and that's one of the tactics that we talk about in the keynote and the book, is the reframe, that shift in your mindset from, oh, I have to, oh, I get to. That shifts from an obligation statement to an opportunity. And that allows us to find the gift in every scenario, every challenge. And I always use, and you'll like this, I always use the example of AI, because we can't have a conversation without talking about AI.
I had it on my checklist of things we have to say.
Let's get it out of the way.
Yeah.
No, I love AI. I use it every day. But it also scares the hell out of me, if I'm being honest, in the wrong hands. But it's here to stay. So here's my reframe statement, Cliff. oh, I have to learn AI, or I'm going to be obsolete and I might lose my job. See my tone, my posture, right? Obligation, I have to. Okay. Let me reframe. I get to. I get to learn AI. I get to get out of my comfort zone, learn something new, stretch, and even help my team and my organization, right? Opportunity. But wait, here's the gift. AI can handle most of my daily mundane tasks, so I can work on the things that light me up. Obligation, opportunity, gift. Don't we all love gifts? Let's
Right.
go get some freaking gifts. Simple shift in your mindset, which I'm sure you can appreciate, being a psychology major, like it is. But it's just taking the time and building that habit to be able to reframe. We're all capable of it. We're negative biased people. That's how we are. We're always in survival mode, trying to survive instead of thrive. If we can just take a moment to pause, we can start to implement some of these very simple tactics.
Yeah. I would imagine that you get, maybe not pushback's not the right word, but uh, some of the challenges I would assume you face is from the sort of mindset of, if it isn't broken, why fix it? Right. It's like, hey, rather than, a big life-changing event, whether positive or negative, there's probably the vast majority of people are sort of, just it's working for me. Maybe I'm not necessarily thriving, but I'm, like I said, survival mode. I'm doing what's necessary to sort of keep my job. And any change could be a disruption, because right now they're fine. They're fine, right? The sort of 5 out of 10 crowd, which, is the bell curve. That is most of it. What do you say to those people?
Well, that's a good one, Cliff. Thanks for that softball you tossed me.
The question you've never gotten, I'm sure.
Yes. Let's be honest. Most people are adverse to change. We don't love change. We might think we do. We might say we do. We don't love change because inherently we are not built for it, right? We are built to survive. So something new, change, right, is a signal of danger. So we run. We run from that. Saber-tooth tiger. Let's get the hell out of here. But we can also see it, as an opportunity. I would say if there's someone that's on that bell curve of a 5, and if you take my assessment, you are falling in. So there's 4 levels. We'll start at the bottom. Smoke signals, flicker, ember, and fire starter. And most people, I've collected over a couple hundred assessments now. Most people are in the flicker to low ember. So what that tells me is there's a lot of people who aren't lit up, and there's an opportunity for us to really reignite. So yes, you might be fine. And fine is a 4-letter word. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that you're thriving. That means that you got comfortable, and likely you are feeling the Bill Murray Groundhog Day, right? And maybe that's okay for you, but you're likely sending off some smoke signals that we talked about. Your curiosity is likely not very high, and you're just kind of going with the flow. And oftentimes probably saying, you know what? It is what it is. This is just how life is right now. Well, that's kind of a cop-out that says I have no control in the matter. I have no choice. Whether we believe it or not, we are all making the same choice every single day. Are we choosing growth, or are we choosing comfort? That's the bottom line. If we're not growing, we're not living. And I'm sorry, that is the mindset of a great leader, is to continually grow, not settle. It doesn't mean that we can't celebrate and enjoy and take a minute, but we still need to. It's a infinite game, like Simon Sinek says. We're just continually growing until the end. That's where we always thrive, and we always stay lit up. And curiosity is one of the keys, and that's one of the drivers of this Spark assessment tool. Is curiosity.
Yeah, that's great. I like that you mentioned fine. I immediately shuddered a little bit. I think anybody that has been in a relationship. And if you talk to your partner and you go, how's everything going? And they say, it's fine. And, the danger sign should be going off, right? The light should be blaring, because fine does not mean good in any setting. So
no, and Cliff, that's a great segue into the next interruption. So as leaders, as HR leaders, practitioners, right, we are responsible for the humans, for that human potential. Our employees have given us their lives, their livelihood, their careers, their families, right? They've given that all to us, and it is our responsibility and our privilege to make sure those sparks are lit, protected, and multiplied out throughout the organization. But we need to really be intentional about it. So another interruption is the intervention. So as a leader, so let's take your I'm fine example, right? So I'm talking with one of my direct reports, and we'll call her Susie, and she says, I'm fine. Well, that's a smoke signal. That's an opportunity to intervene. And most likely there have been other smoke signals: curiosity shutting down, ownership fading, energy dropping, slight disengagement, slight burnout, slight stress, anxiety, right? All these things. So that's an opportunity to step in and have a conversation with Susie before she gets burned out, before she exits the company, before you have to go try to fill that role that's going to cost thousands of dollars to the bottom line and the stress levels and add to your plate, right? Let's try to protect and keep the talent that we do have. And all it takes, again, it goes back to the data. The data's there. If you know the smoke, if you know your people, well, I'll even take it a step back further, right? Gallup had a poll, some data they released a few years ago that said the best way to increase engagement is to devote 30 minutes every single week for a one-to-one with your employees. That's it. 30 minutes a week, one-to-one. And that goes back to really knowing your people, taking the time, knowing what lights them up, what energizes them, but also knowing what drains them so that you can see the smoke signals. And if you've created that psychological safe space, then your people will come to you because they'll feel safe enough. They've built that trust that you can have that conversation and say, hey, Cliff, man, I'm not fine. This isn't working for me. I'm not being challenged. I'm not growing. I need something. I need something new. I need to stretch. What can we do here? I want to stay here. I love the company. I believe in the mission. I love you as a manager or boss. But let's do something here, So if we don't intervene, then our people continue on and they get to that disengaged burnout level, and likely they leave. And we just see it, circle back round and round. So that's what I would say to the fine example.
Right.
And the second interruption, which is the intervening.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. I think about how practical this is for just, it doesn't necessarily have to be work, right? It seems like so much of this is applicable to larger part of life. I think a big fundamental shift that happened, right, about 5 years ago is more of us started working from home, right? At the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned how work can affect, the reason to do this isn't just so that we are more productive at work or whatever the case may be, is because this also affects our families and friends, right? And I thought a lot about that going through the assessment and looking at this, because so much of when we talk about sort of routines and how we set up work and the things that go in are greatly affected by the environment around us, and how many of us are working from home, and how much that is an interruption, and how much that has been an effect on how we structure our days, and the things that can come in and sort of pull us apart and keep us, the sort of, on one hand, it's separating us from our work, but on the other hand, the line has never been more blurred between work and life, right? The old work-life balance is almost an archaic concept, right? Because it's just, from our most recent data, the large majority of people work either all from home or in a hybrid model, right? Very few
Mm-hmm.
people are doing the always in the office 9 to 5 routine anymore. How have you seen that in your time, sort of maybe unique challenges or things that have affected people's spark and how they engage at work?
Yeah, you opened a can there, Cliff. It's I have some very strong feelings about it. It's interesting, and you're right. I totally agree. Work-life balance, let's toss it out the window.
All right.
I had a guest on my show, on my podcast a few months ago, and he called it work-life harmony. I was like, oh, I like that. And actually, it's just so blended that it's just the same in some degrees, right? And I know that sounds odd to say that, but it is very blended. And a lot of people are in a hybrid or solely working from home. And there are huge benefits. In my marketing company, we have a policy called Work Your Way. Work however you want to work. We have a beautiful office space devoted. You can come in a part of the time and work from home the other time, or you can be completely at home. And most people work from home. And when we do our employee engagement surveys, the number one thing that people say why they like working here is, one, the people, their colleagues, and two, the flexibility and being able to work from home. Because a lot of them have, small children, they're still in school, and having that flexibility and potentially that commute time back in their day. So they gain likely at least an hour, if not longer, hour and a half, 2 hours. But I have seen people who, and I think it's the personality traits, honestly, the people that have a hard time separating, right? Drawing that line in the sand, like you said. And I had one of my top executives in my company say that she had to create a literal separate space in her house, that all she did in that one bedroom was work. And once she left, it wasn't work. And I thought that was really smart because she had a difficult time. She had her, like you said, you have, laptops, you have devices all over the place so that you don't lose a thought and you can tap right in. But in some cases, that might be very distracting and keep you from having some cliff time, right? From really having time to just settle and not think about work or focus on to be really present with your family or your partner, your spouse. So I think it is a little bit all over the place, depending on the person. But I've seen many people struggle with the work from home in terms of keeping lit up because they're working too much, or they're not able to really separate the two and focus then on some things that are personal to them, the things where they just lose track of time, that they just really love doing, whether it be passion, hobbies, writing a book, taking a poetry class, picking up that guitar that's sat in the corner for years, whatever the case may be. So, but it's interesting. I don't know where we're going with it. I do believe hybrid is a great model. I'm not personally a huge fan of the fully work from home. I'm sure I'll catch some slack for that, but I have it. As a policy in my business because I didn't want to lose my employees. So I listen, and I'm giving them what they want. It's not necessarily what I want, but that was part of my story of what dimmed my spark, was not seeing my people every day.
Yeah.
I started a business so I could create the culture and be around the people that I want to spend time with every day and brainstorm and collaborate. And I'm sorry, Teams and Zoom all day long is just not the same. And I'm an older guy, and that just wasn't filling my cup. And I started to feel like a consultant, a freelancer. I'm like, well, that's not me. So I interrupted myself. I looked at my journal entries, and there was a pattern, and it showed that I wasn't lit up anymore. And I said, I'm not going to not be lit up. I'm too old for that. I want to enjoy every day, be lit up, help people, collaborate. And so that's why I transitioned out of running the day-to-day of my company to be a keynote speaker, to be a coach, to help people, to meet, connect. That's what lights me up. That's what I love to do. So
Well, that's wonderful. That would actually be a good segue into asking people, or to letting people know where they can find you and know more about you. But I did want to check to make sure, because I feel like we were on this journey, right? We found the interruption, we got to the intervention. Is there a sort of maybe third stage? You've had something that's got you there. You've taken that intervention, you've taken those steps to find your spark. Is there sort of maintenance after that, or is there a step past that?
Absolutely. Well, you did your research, Cliff. Absolutely. Yeah. The next step, right? So once we reignite, just like any fire, if you really think about sitting around a campfire, right? That fire doesn't burn on its own. You got to tend to it. You got to add the fuel, add the logs, put some boulders around it. That next stage is protecting that spark. So once we ignite, we need to protect. And we can protect by, there's a variety of different tactics, but simply put, staying curious, always being an anthropologist, exploring, asking the second and third question, not being judgmental, just being open to the conversation and learning and growing. And then the second is our mindset, really building that mental resiliency so that when something does throw us off, because it's going to happen, it's life, that we don't just fall off the horse and never get back on. And then we start to drip down, right, and see the smoke signals. If we build that mental strength and that resiliency, then we can continue to protect that spark. And then the last is multiplying. Once you ignite and protect, you're lit up and you're contagious. And you can spread that light to everybody you serve. And that's the beautiful part about it. That's when the magic happens, the multiplier. So that is kind of the true journey of this, is igniting, protecting, and multiplying that spark. And that's our job as leaders, HR leaders, practitioners, as humans. Really, it's on us too to be responsible for that. It affects everything that we do.
Yeah, like the signal fires and
right,
bring down the
SOS.
Yeah, wonderful. That is great. I think that's inspirational. I like any journey that ends with helping others, right? Because we focus on what do we need, but I do think that the end result should always be what can we do then for the community and for everyone else. So, Todd, how then can people learn more about you and find, like you mentioned, you have your own podcast. Where can people find that? Where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah, you can check out my website, toddbertsch.com, very odd spelling, BERTSCH.com. Everything's there. I'm very active on social, especially LinkedIn. I would love to connect with some of your listeners. I produce a lot of greats. Well, I believe greats. At least it's very positive content wrapped around personal, professional growth and leadership. I also have a podcast, which is called The Bolt, and you can find that on all the podcast platforms, and you can find it on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple as well. And then take the Spark assessment. If you go to my website, or maybe Cliff, you'll be able to add it to the show notes.
This will be in the notes, exactly.
Yeah, so it's 5 to 7 minutes. It'll provide you with some insight, and then insight's great, right? It's that interruption, but then you need to take that action, and you'll get immediate results, and you'll be emailed some actionable items that you can.
That is wonderful. Thank you. As we're wrapping up, I just had the greatest time, Todd. Thank you so much. As you mentioned the data quite a bit. I will mention that we here at Sapient Insights Group are in the middle of writing the annual HR systems report in our 29th year coming out. It is the most comprehensive collection of HR systems data. Last year, I think I had it at 380 pages. I'm in the midst of writing it. I can tell you right now, it will be over 400 pages. So, I think it always pairs well to think about, okay, we're going to learn a whole lot, everything there probably is to know about HR technology. But but then it always comes into what do we do, right?
Mhm.
How is it affecting us? And there's lots of different sort of interventions and things you should do. But I like to pair these sort of ideas together, right? Here's the information. That itself could be one of those interruptions, right? This
Mhm.
could come to you and say, wow,
Insight.
that I had no idea. I've got the info, but then how do we put it into action? What are the tools in front of us? So I do really like having these two different ideas, right? Of what is the baseline now that we have the knowledge that we need? What do we do with it? How do we
Mhm.
grow with that?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you. And after you go to Todd's podcast, you can also check out our sister podcast, Spilling Tea on HR Tech. Also, The Pivot Effect with former host of the show, Terry Zipper, all available on the Work Defined family of podcasts. I also want to thank everyone that's involved in that, our marketing team, and everyone that puts this out. I want to thank you, Todd, so much for joining us today. And I want to thank you, the listeners and viewers, for tuning in for another episode of HR We Have a Problem. If you enjoyed this episode, of course, you can subscribe, like, favorite, all the fun stuff. Leave us a review if you have a minute. And as Todd said, feel free to write into the comments. If you're seeing this on LinkedIn, if you're seeing this on YouTube, go ahead and put in a comment and we will reach out to you. And in meantime, we'll be back in another few weeks for another episode of HR We Have a Problem. Thanks, everyone.